Hi, this is Mark. In this video, I'm going to explain why IQ tests are overrated in general. There is a prominent trend going on. If you view forum posts from platforms such as Core or Reddit, there's a lot of posts in terms of IQ tests, and basically the frequency. You can tell if it's a trend based on the frequency of exchange and transmission uh, along different pathways of communication or pathways uh, of travel or transmission of information. And the probability that the information is going to hit target an area is proportional to the quantity and the frequency of post. And IQ test is one. People are putting so much emphasis on it, and it's as if we represent it as like a one-to-one relation. Of course, it's not a one-to-one relation in terms of success, and it does yield maybe some a positive. Like if you take the trajectory, there is, there's definitely a positive trend going on. But in terms of what is important, what yields the highest degree of leverage in terms of success, it's IQ test is a it's a slice of the pie. It's something that is not even entails the entirety of intelligence. It doesn't even represent intelligence from a global scale. It's a localized scale. And what I believe in terms of what I've assessed throughout my life is that social intelligence, executive functioning skills such as planning, organizing, and categorizing, as well as you know um, the ability to um, execute and just uh, fit in, at least know exactly how to react in terms of different social situations and domain, and adapt to such an environment. And verbal skills are definitely very important. I can tell you the successful people who I've noted tend to have a higher verbal capacity as well as written communication skills, and that's probably attested to their ability to communicate. And yes, IQ tests, there's a huge disparity. What I find is if you take individuals of subset of the population with the same score, there's a huge disparity among potential. Potential energy is it's going to be different, or how much potential you have, and basically not everyone transmits it or transforms it to create kinetic energy or movement. They're not moving forward, and you need a lot of these skills, such as motivation, of course, grit, hard work, dedication. The only thing, yeah, IQ has to do a lot with processing and ability to manipulate information at a faster rate. But at the same time, if you put in the work and the effort, and if you have a great memory or capacity, that does goes a long way, and especially when you know how to interact and deal with people, because a lot of the jobs on the if you take the scale, there's not many jobs that such that you're in seclusion, where you actually don't even have to interact with individuals. And people, if you want to buy a product, for instance, we a lot of times we buy on impulse. We buy in terms of emotion. People generally want to be validated in some form, and if you don't do so, like if you want to move up the chain, it's interesting because partially, it's a lot of the uh, you'll notice it's how much social influence you have, how much you can socially network, and how many, I've met so many individuals who academically performed poorly. Like I knew one individual, he took introduction to logic, and when I was a mathematics major, and of course he did have some anxiety, but I just knew he would be successful. I knew he's very good with people, and he had gifts in terms of communication, and he wanted to be a professor. That was his goal, but it just didn't have this yield the success in the academic world. But he's now very, very successful, and he has a good job, and he's a manager. And there's a lot of the skill set, or the skill set that you need is you got to play the game. You got to play the social game, and it can definitely leverage have a huge degree, or allow you to leverage a much faster rate than someone who has a high IQ or higher IQ or so forth. And we can't you know, quantify it like exactly, or quantify in terms of intelligence. IQ test is just a subset of intelligence, but it is a part of it. Allows you to excel in certain tasks, but it's very localized, and that's at least what I find. Um, it may be at the extreme end if you want to be like a neuroscientist or astrophysicist, or if you want to be an academic world, or it's going to have more bearing or more degree of importance if you want to leverage those areas or move up in the academic world. It's going to have some higher effect. But in terms of the industrial world, it's not. It's very overrated. It's not. I find better predictors of success is verbal aptitude, and of course, verbal aptitude has to do correlates with the IQ as well. If you have a good, but you could have like a pretty high or higher score, but you could be verbally astute or verbally strong, yet your mathematics skills are lacking, and there tends to be a big disparity at the extremes. When you have high verbal capacity, it's very usually you're going to have lower mathematical capacity. That's not always the case, of course. It's very hard to be like a or Benjamin Franklin, who has a jack of all trades, because we tend to invest our energy and our interests and passions and develop our growth, and our mind develops at such a at that the rate that our mind develops is proportional to the amount of energy that we channel in a certain domain. And we usually uh, tend to have disparity between all the regions. It's not going to be evenly spread either. But I think verbal skills are very important, and someone could have a relatively average IQ but very high verbal capacity if it's not evenly spread, and so forth, because there tends to be a bias with mathematical skills or even pattern recognition or numerical sequence. If you ever took the calculus course and studied sequences and series, it's kind of similar to what you would experience. Find the next number in a series, but that doesn't really translate well. At least what I know is, if you don't know how to socialize well, if you find that very hard, consume a lot of energy, and you don't adapt to that type of mode of environment, the success is going to dampen very, very fast. You know, and I just think that is extremely important, and we tend to believe like there's a one-to-one mathematical relationship with success and IQ, and that therefore if the IQ is higher, you're gonna have more. No, it's not. It doesn't work that way. There's plenty of people with high IQ who don't get around in this world. Of course, you maybe associate that with grit, determination, and other factors, or conscientiousness. Of course, personality traits matter, but it's once you get past a certain limit, it really really the big. If you want to get over the hump, it's just you set aside, you put hard work, you invest your energy confidently, and you don't burn yourself out, of course, because you need the mental strength and you need to keep your mental health, at a good level. And of course, I think intelligence evolves over time. And like I said, IQ, it doesn't even equate to intelligence as a whole. There's creativity. It doesn't predict really, slightly predicts a slight prediction of creative ability at certain levels they found, but I don't know how valid that case is. But it doesn't really. I mean, you could be an extremely creative individual and have musical talent or be prodigious and get around in this world, and you don't even need to know your IQ. You find your niche and find what you're good at, and find your localized region of where you can channel your energy and yield the best success. And overall, globally, I just think having verbal communication skills is extremely important nowadays. And even on interviews, the probability of achieving success in interviews is associated with verbal aptitude and the way you present yourself. And people tend to move up with by validating the managers in some form, through appreciation. Or if you don't associate with anyone and you're just secluding, it's just not going to work very well. You got to People a lot of times will hire you because of the personality traits that you exhibit, and that's kind of what gets you through a lot of times. And you have to present yourself and dress nice and do all these social. You have to have social etiquette and follow the rules and follow certain regulations and play the game. And IQ is this really small piece of the equation. It's not, and we overemphasize it way too much. And it's just like a, it's a discrete number that is doesn't even really it doesn't. There's no point, just boasting over it. In my view, it's this great. Yeah, if someone exhibits an higher IQ, they can, just don't utilize it rather than talking about it so much. Just. But I just think anyone, the potential is very high once you reach at least um, a certain limit. And average is just enough. Of course, if there's like problems, of course, there's going to be problems at the lower ends, but that's attributed to, there's just stuff that we can't control, like nature, how it flows, what family lineage you're born in. You could a lot of times with successful individuals, they're born in family lineage, or the lineage has been successful throughout history. Or there's a high probability of success, or and it's transferred on through generation to generation. Versus like if there's alcoholics or someone's alcoholic, they do drugs, it kind of depreciates the intellectual capacities and it causes mutations of the genetic coding and all these sorts of problems. That kind of, but you can still be happy. If your IQ low, at a low level, you find they tend to be happy. They don't take things so let all the all the havoc, like all the uh, they don't they generally don't associate or compare contrast so much in terms of their position in relation to the rest of the world, which tends to suck a lot of our energy. And it's pretty much a game. We're always competing. We're always trying to progress, and I guess that's why it's so important that we're even considering IQ, because we're in a progressive nation, and I think the reasoning why IQ has been so predominantly uh, widespread throughout the internet, the world of or internet world of technology, is because we're in information overload, and we're in a globalized uh, we are a globalized society, and that is progressing at such a fast rate, and the extremes of society is shown to us at a higher frequency, and therefore it gives us the illusion that it's not so extreme, and it kind of seems like it's happens more frequently than in actuality, and we tend to base it on the intellectual or IQ levels a lot of the times, and I think that's what has to go with the progression. It's like we're always trying to move forward at such higher degree than ever before, just because uh, we're exposed to so many stories, of people's progressions, and we kind of want to leverage at that level, or leverage at that capacity, or that rate of change. And of course, we get into like stuff like calculus and rate of change, and it becomes almost an addiction, and therefore kind of creates the manifestation of this uh, issue that we're kind of dealing with, is just the oversaturation of posts relating to IQ levels, and it's overhyped and it's overrepresented in my view, and it wastes a lot of energy even talking about it. So yeah, that's just my rant. I'm gonna stop right here. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.